British Chancellor of the Exchequer is calling out one of the country's richest men for comments that she says is unacceptable. Sir Jim Ratcliffe said that the UK is being colonised by immigrants. He has since apologised for his choice of language, but not the sentiment underneath it. Ratcliffe's better known as a co-owner of Manchester United Football Club. Most of the club players were born outside of the UK. Interestingly, Ratcliffe is not a UK tax resident. He's transferred to Monaco in 2020. He has been a supporter of the Labour government. Now, of course, he's said these comments, and the issue is whether or not he's going to sort of now go to reform and Nigel Farage. Bianca Nobilo is the host and managing editor of the show History Uncensored, also a dear former colleague of mine. Bianca, how much of I heard this morning on the radio, how much of a storm is this? Bearing in mind, yes, his language was intemperate and inappropriate, but he says it's the sentiment. You know, let's not get sidetracked by that.
Richard, it's so great to be on your programme. Thanks for having me. One of the reasons it's causing this storm, and I think a storm is fair, is because it is capturing such a volatile and growing debate in this country, because we see what's happening with Nigel Farage and reform in the polls, and that's exactly what this debate is about. So the language choice of colonise, for our viewers that may not have seen it, is what the Prime Minister, Labour, the Greens, the Liberal Democrats have called very offensive and wrong, obviously because Britain has a history of colonising, and that carries exploitative and subjugative undertones. But Nigel Farage and Reform were very keen to say, let's not get distracted by the language. There are real points here about levels of migration into the UK, and the Conservatives, naturally desperate for votes, trying to have a milder response that neither calls it too offensive nor undersells the issue.
I feel somewhat embarrassed asking this question, but you'll know where I'm going. Is the real danger here with this one? You know, the PM's called on Ratcliffe to apologise. Manchester fans have said this, that, the other. But it all ignores the point of what he was saying. His language was awful, but, you know, Ratcliffe's already praised Farage. Farage has already signed on to the sentiment, not the language. Farage could be the next UK Prime Minister, and the current PM's in a mess.
Yeah, and also, did you know that he's seeking government funding to build another stadium? So really not a good idea all around. So, I mean, very clearly, there are deep concerns in the electorate about migration. Britain is the country most likely to cite immigration as a #1 concern. About a quarter of the electorate in the UK think that immigration is the biggest issue, and about half think it's a major issue. So clearly it's something that all politicians need to be thinking about. But I think there are a couple of problems with what Ratcliffe said in terms of the facts. So he alleged a 12 million increase in population in the last, I think it was decade or so, whereas in actual fact, it's more like 2.9 million. He said that 9 million people were on benefits. Actually, the figure's more like 10 million, but those people also work. You know, a couple of factual things, but he's not wrong in the fact that net migration has been responsible for 98% of population growth from 2020 to 2023. So yeah, the essence of what he's saying resonates.
Quick question on Starmer. Is it a question not if, but when, he goes?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to imagine him being at the helm for the next election. I think the main issue is who was going to replace him. And while there'd been a bit of a groundswell around certain figures last year, that momentum seems to have dropped. So I would tend to agree with you there.
Has Kemi...
And always.
Yeah. Has the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has she made considerable progress? I mean, is Nigel Farage still the one to be? The two-party system, which you know better than anybody, is very difficult to beat because of the logistics, because of the inherent way in which it works. How are things looking at the moment?
It is, but actually there's two really interesting pieces of research that I think you'd find fascinating. The first is that now more than ever in recorded history in the UK, people do not have an allegiance. They are more changeable with their parties than ever before. So that has a lot of volatility to it. If a party is going to destroy that two-party system, it would be now. So I think that's a really important factor to consider. And the Tories also, I was speaking to a friend of mine who runs focus groups and works as a special advisor in the Conservative Party. One of the issues they're really worried about is that in focus groups, they're finding that voters aren't particularly curious about the Conservative stance. It's almost like they're not part of the conversation in the way that they would have been. Not even we don't want to vote for them. It's like, well, we don't really care what they have to say, which is a huge issue.
I'm grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed, Bianca, joining me. Lovely to have you on the program. Thank you.